Hey guys, it's Ian at SS8000 Cars and welcome to my driveway. We have the cat on the drive as usual. Say hello, puss. We have the three cars. Two of the cars were picked up quite recently. The Panamera e-hybrid was picked up in December, late December. The Porsche GT3 was picked up a week ago, so it's very new, and I wanted to just get them together to do a video on the cars. Obviously the Panamera is a completely different beast. The Panamera is my everyday car, so I've taken over from the Golf R, which we still have, but I'm using it a bit less now, simply because because this is more comfortable for the use that I have. Now, that is not to say that I don't still enjoy the Golf R. The Golf R is an amazing machine and amazing value for money, in my opinion. Now, it's not the sort of 7.5 series that was launched recently. It's the 7 late 2014 car, and the performance is just tremendous on it. But I now come to recognize that the kick that you get in the Panamera 4 e-hybrid, kicking out 462 HP, is more than you get from the Golf's 300 HP, despite the fact that this is almost 2.2 tons, whereas the Golf is more like 1.4. So there's, in terms of weight, there's a considerable difference. But this actually has an incredible poke when you push it. I have about £30,000 worth of extras. It's 81 list, and then this car came out at almost £111,000. So it's not a cheap car. You could easily make it 120, 125,000. My own personal opinion is you've got to stop somewhere. So I think maybe the only thing that I would have liked if I had my time again, especially in town, is the rear wheel steer. But again, I'm not sure that I noticed a difference, because I did actually drive a car with the rear wheel steer when I tested the car out. Hatfield were very kind to me and they lent me an e-hybrid, and that particular one had rear wheel steer. So I'm very happy with it. The only thing of note that I may not have had in a video, which I'd just like to show you briefly in the car, is this dial here. Now, I will have explained to you before that this dial here is the sport dial, so it allows you to activate where you want to be. So you've effectively got electric mode, you've got hybrid mode, you have sport mode and sport plus. Now, if you push the button in the middle, that activates all the power that the combustion engine can give you, combined with the electric motors. So the full enchilada, so to speak. I've done, just so you can see, 3,835 miles in it, so it is getting used, and it does quite a few journeys with me. I've been going up and down to Manchester a bit for business recently, and as a consequence of that does rack up the miles as well. But it's a superb car. On Sunday, we're down at the Goodwood racetrack exhibiting the McLaren. So that'll be fun. It's the breakfast meet. The McLaren is an astonishing machine in itself. Now, we took it to Blenheim Palace for the Supercars Sunday Pirelli cars a couple of weeks ago. Now, I am interested in McLaren and McLaren's marketing, and I'm going to do a separate video of that, because I think McLaren make the most beautiful cars, and I think they make, from an engineering viewpoint, I think they're second to none. And I think they've given so much thought to how a car performs. The new Senna is an astonishing machine, not pretty maybe, but purposeful, and there's no question at all that that car is going to be fast. I'm just hoping they do a Nürburgring time on it, because I would have thought it would blow away the opposition. It's the GT3 RS Porsche that has the record at the moment, I would have thought that this car is just going to blow that away. The Senna rather than the LT. But I heard through the grapevine that McLaren were having trouble, even with the P1, in getting their times below 7 minutes. So, you know, at the end of the day, they need a car like the McLaren Senna to really set everybody's expectations about what McLaren are capable of doing. Now, I don't care what people say about the 720 and the 675. I think it suits people that have 720 sometimes to do videos and say that it is so much faster than the 675LT. I've driven both. I didn't really notice it. I mean, the 720S is blindingly quick, but this is blindingly quick. So I know that the stats suggest that the 720S would be faster. In fact, it's 7.8 to 124 miles an hour, and this is only 7.9. Whether you'd notice the 0.1 of a difference or not, I simply don't know. I mean, I wouldn't. I think people like to kid themselves that they would. And we have no intention here at SS8000 Cars of getting rid of this car, because for me, this does everything. You know, the dihedral doors that you can see in their upright position make looking at this car an occasion. Colours perhaps not as spectacular in terms of a dynamic impression that you get up front, but I love the colour combinations. I love the Alcantara and the carbon fibre door inserts. I love the carbon fibre on the sills. I love the red racing seats. I like the red in the at the top of the leather steering wheel. I mean, I much prefer the interior of the 675 to the 720S. The 720S has gone the ways of other McLarens, in fairness to it. Still love the way the centre console floats above the cup holders. I just think that's absolutely fantastic. But, you know, as a statement, this car is fantastic. And the suspension's quite compliant. The Achilles heel of this car, if there is one, is the noise that it makes. Road noise entering the cabin is quite intrusive, is the way that I put it. So at 70-80 miles an hour, it certainly makes ordinary conversation quite difficult. You can see we have the titanium roll bar that weighs 5 kgs apparently. Absolutely nothing. And I think it integrates itself quite nicely into the back of the car behind the seats, because of course the coupe has room behind the seats, whereas the Spider doesn't. This has the full telemetry pack, as you probably remember. And then 675 in the footwell, saying that this was limited run to 500 cars. And I like the styling. Funnily enough, the 720S, when it came out, I didn't like, because I didn't like those open headlights. And then it grew on me slightly, and now it's gone the other way again. I think the 720S, to my eyes, doesn't look as cohesive as the 675, but, you know, it may be that I'm biased. I'm not utterly sure. So moving on to the new one. Shut the door there. Moving on to the new one, here we have it, the GT3 991/2, the GT3 with the 4-litre naturally aspirated engine. Will it be the last? Some people say that it will, and when I met Andreas Preuninger down at Goodwood last year, he just didn't say. And I think that's because at the moment Porsche actually don't know. I think they're going to have to bring out a twin turbo unit at some point, because their race cars will have to go that way, and because this is really a cup engined car, so it's basically the same engine as they have in their Cup series. I think ultimately, if they put the engine in the race car, they'll be putting it in the next generation Porsche, which incidentally is due to come out at the end of this year. Now, I don't know whether you guys know, but Porsche have closed down production completely now from the end of May until the end of September or October. And it's rumoured there may not be another 991 second generation that comes out, it may go straight to the next generation of car. Now I don't know what that's going to be called. I love the looks of this car. I think that the matte paint has been a bit of a hit for me. I mean, I've probably given you guys lots of hints over the past year about how much the matte paint has grown on me, and I hedged my bets with this. I've obviously gone for the Matte Expel, which is a product that Porsche fit themselves and provide a 7-year warranty, and as a consequence of that, it's actually agate grey underneath. So if I hadn't liked it, all I needed to do was take it back to Porsche, they take it straight off, and of course I've got a metallic grey car. Now that brings me on, interestingly, you will note out of the 3 cars we have different number plates on each car, obviously because they're different cars, but by which I mean different sizes of number plate, or in the GT3's case, no number plate at all. I am told by Ferrari, by Porsche and by McLaren that the police do not tend to enforce the fact that cars are not wearing front number plates, but I'm a little uncomfortable with that myself. Now obviously on the Panamera it's a no-brainer, and also it protects the car to an extent, especially if you have the car in Europe where people have a tendency to go right up until they touch the car. Quite nice to have the number plate there, because it sort of protects the car slightly. The McLaren started life without a front number plate, but because I was driving in town quite a bit, I put a number plate on it, and I think that was a sensible thing to do, but I've gone for a smaller number plate. Same regulation size numbers, but smaller, and that's just stuck on. Clearly, as you can see, there's a number plate holder on the Panamera. You can see that it's just stuck on the front bumper on the McLaren. On the Porsche guys said pretty much the same as all the other prestigious manufacturers have said. You don't need it, most people don't take it. I've driven it a few times, obviously I drove it home. It hasn't been used much. It's very low mileage, and it's very low mileage because literally the day after I brought it home I got a puncture on the near side rear, and the tyres have been a little bit difficult to source, but we're there now. Car's booked in next week, so it'll get itself sorted out. I've filled it with the foam that they provide. That's another story. I'm going to tell you all about that for those of you who've never used one of those bottles that you squeeze to fill up the tyre. I'm going to give you a demonstration of what happens if there's only one of you. Absolutely love some of the details on the GT3. I like the GT3 4.0 on the bottom of the doors. Again, you know, it's a personal thing. Really quite keen to keep this car. I mean, some people have asked, why didn't you get the GT3 RS? Isn't that the more racy of the 2 cars? My answer to that is, although not a huge difference in the sophistication on the road between the GT3 and the GT3 RS, the GT3 is the slightly more cosseting of the 2, and it is considerably more cosseting at speed than the McLaren. So the McLaren, to an extent, is my race car. Porsche know that 4 out of every 5 of their GT owners take these cars on track. And you can even, if you take out Porsche insurance, which I actually don't have, but if you take out Porsche insurance, you'll actually find that the Porsche insurance will include 2 track days. So Porsche are keen for you to be using these cars. Likewise, McLaren encourage you to take the cars on the racetrack as well. They have endless owner day, track day events all around the world, and I'm absolutely determined that I'm going to do one of those next year. They're quite different, the 2 cars, the McLaren and the GT3. The Porsche is very low, but it's mainly because it's set very low, so you can see there's not much of a gap between the top of the tyres and the wheel arch. In fact, very little gap at all. The McLaren is low because the car is low. This is a 911 car, but it's based, every other 911 is basically the same body. And obviously this is fettled by the GT division of Weissach, and it's, as a consequence, it's fettled for the track. But these cars are designed for the track from the start. And you can see the difference. I mean, in truth, by my reckoning, this is a super sports car. So at the top end of the sports cars, and I put the 570S McLaren into that category as well, although the 570S would be more powerful and quicker than the GT3. But this is a supercar, and this is really nudging into hypercar territory, or at least it was until the latest generation of hypercars, because obviously things move on. And if you take the 720S, the figures on the 720S suggest that it really is up to about 190 miles an hour, not much slower than the P1. I think driving the McLaren is possibly more of an event than driving the GT3, just simply because you're getting in something that looks like it's a super stroke hypercar. The Porsche looks more traditional in the sense there are quite a few 911s around, and therefore it doesn't look hugely different unless you know your Porsches. However, in some ways that's also its advantage, because getting in and out of the Porsche is so much easier than getting in and out of the McLaren. And if I just raise the door on the McLaren, hopefully we can have them both open, no problem at all. You can see the difference in the heights of the sill, for example. So you don't have, now I know the 720S and the 570 for that matter have the carbon monocell 2s which actually come down at the front, makes life a little bit easier. Remember, I had a 540 for 2 months last year, so very familiar. But even with the 540, 570 range, it's still, you've got to climb over, whereas you're really not climbing over anything here. Both of them have bucket seats, as you can see. I prefer the bucket seats in the Porsche. They are more comfortable. They're also not quite as heavily straked as the McLaren ones. Now, I don't want to give you the impression the McLaren ones are uncomfortable, because they're not. They're once you get used to the driving position, they are actually quite fabulous. But the Porsche's ones are just easier to get on with. Now, this car inside is specced up to the hilt, and I'll talk about that at the full review, but it's looking rather good. Love the GT3 moniker in the rear, which you can see highlighted in red on top of the Alcantara. I think that's lovely. Again, like the McLaren, the seats are carbon fibre backed. Trouble with the McLaren is you can't see them easily, because, well, the only way really to see the McLaren's seats is to push them forward. So if I put the camera down very briefly, bring this forward, you can see them. But the thing about the McLaren ones is they don't recline, but they are beautiful. They are beautiful. The Porsche probably has the slightly better finish to them. Always think that the McLaren Alcantara looks like it's just been peeled over the edge of the seat, and you know the actual lining is sort of not quite perfectly in place, whereas the in the Porsche they're beautiful. They're all perfectly stuck to the, I mean, presumably it's exactly the same principle, but the finish on it is just that much better. Again, as you can see, you have the Porsche crest on the top of the headrests, and that's standard with the sports buckets. Lots of carbon fibre in the car. Okay guys, well, I hope that was interesting, and look forward to many more videos of the cars, especially over the next 6 months or so. It's Ian from SSA 1000 Cars signing off. Thanks guys.